Okay, I think I'm done work for the day. It's time to pack up. Okay, all ready to go. Which one should I take? I'll take, Nope, I'm done. Okay, so now that the new iPad Pros have the M1 chip, there's legitimately a viable question going around saying, hey, do I get the M1 iPad Pro or do I just pick up like an M1 MacBook Air? What would be a better buy and what would be more worth it? Like what works best for you? And that's exactly what we're gonna tackle in this video, and hopefully this helps you guys figure out which one you should get, which one's the better buy. Let's get into it. So the base MacBook Air at $999 is a phenomenal value point to get into the entire M1 ecosystem. I think it's the best M1 value option you're gonna get on the market right now. On the other side, for a similar spec and similar size machine, you're gonna be paying about $1099 for the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. Now keep in mind, this doesn't come with the Magic Keyboard. So if you want the same exact experience of using a laptop and having the convenience of a keyboard and everything, you're gonna have to splurge another $300 for the Apple Magic Keyboard. So all in all, you're looking at a package of about $1,400. What? That's already $400 more than the package you're gonna get with the MacBook Air. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. All right, the next point we're gonna talk about is now the chassis, like the actual body of it, the weight factor and everything. Let's get into that. The MacBook Air clocks in at about 2.8 pounds, whereas the iPad Pro comes in at about 1.5 pounds. So the iPad Pro on its own is a little bit lighter. However, the Magic Keyboard in and of itself is about 1.6 pounds, which is, yeah, like it's more heavier than the iPad Pro itself. So the Magic Keyboard together with the iPad Pro comes in at about 3.1 pounds. So that's actually heavier than the MacBook Air package we're gonna get. And you can actually feel it. Like when I hold both of these together, like the iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard and everything actually feels a little more bulkier. It feels like more substantial compared to the MacBook Air, which feels a lot lighter to me. It feels more, because it also has this like tapered finish to it, where it's not the same thickness all the way throughout. It becomes really thin right at the edge where you kind of tend to hold the laptop. In terms of thickness, when I put these two side by side, on the thicker side of the MacBook Air, the iPad Pro inside its keyboard, it's pretty much the same thickness. But I will say this, once the iPad Pro comes out of the keyboard and you're just holding the screen, it kind of feels surreal. Like I still remember the first time when I got this size of the screen and I was holding just the screen and I was viewing content on it. It felt surreal. Usually like you don't hold the screen of the laptop, right? Like you hold the actual keyboard, but when you're holding the iPad, it feels so incredible because you have something that looks that good literally in the palm of your hands. So overall, I will say the point goes to the MacBook Air if I'm using both of these inside their keyboard configurations, because it's just lighter, it feels nicer, it's easier to pack away, it's easier to carry around with you. But I will also give a point to the iPad Pro because once I pull it out of the Magic Keyboard, like the experience is just on another level. It feels really nice to use. So that gets a point there as well. The next thing we're gonna look at is lapability. Yeah, it's a word. I think so actually. I don't know if it's in the dictionary, but I use it all the time. So it's lapability of both of these machines. And I will say a laptop is incomparable. Like you can't compare the ease of use in terms of lapability with a MacBook Air or any laptop for that matter, versus the iPad Pro. It kind of feels funky, like it's a little awkward, right? I mean, I use it all the time, don't get me wrong, it's usable, but it's a little awkward. And the main reason that's the case is because when you use the iPad Pro, it's top heavy. So when you're actually holding the keyboard, it's a lot thinner and it just feels a little wobbly and it's wonky. Versus with any laptop, most of your weight is on the base of it, right? So where you're holding it, where it's on your lap, and then the actual screen is pretty lightweight. So that's pretty much why it feels a lot more grounded to use like an actual laptop. So lapability point goes to the MacBook Air. Next up, viewing angles. Again, here the iPad Air takes a point because the viewing angles are just a lot more on a laptop. Like you can open it up like to different ranges versus with the iPad Pro, you have far fewer viewing angles with this keyboard. Even if you were to get other keyboards, a lot of them are limited to like 2-3 spots that you can kind of open the hinge up to. Overall, like from a standpoint of like, you know, using the Magic Keyboard and everything, laptop is far better in terms of viewing angles. Okay, the next point, flexibility. Now this is where the iPad Pro starts to come ahead. There's just so many different possibilities for the iPad Pro to be used in different scenarios. You can use it as a laptop with a keyboard and actually type out like entire essays or scripts like I do. Or you can just detach the iPad and take it as a lightweight tablet with you wherever you want to go. Recently I was studying for an exam, and being able to study on this versus like a laptop, like I far preferred the experience I had on the iPad Pro, because I was just able to kind of keep it close to me, flip through notes. I just had a lot more comfort factor, and it just felt a lot more comfortable for me to study off of the iPad Pro. You also have the touch input, which you don't get with any of the Macs. So the touch input, you can do so many more things that could be more streamlined and quicker, whereas if you were to just move a cursor and try to, navigate that way. So you have that. You also have Apple Pencil support, albeit you don't have to purchase the Apple Pencil separate. It's like $100 something. But the Apple Pencil, the best stylus I've used, best pencil, writing device I've used on a tablet. It works incredibly well. And I was using it for my exam again, right? Taking notes or going through practice exams and, doing multiple choice questions, stuff like that. All of that was so nice to do on the iPad Pro, and just really showed the amount of flexibility I was able to get out of this iPad Pro. So overall, the flexibility of the iPad Pro is a huge win. So the iPad Pro gets a point here because it's just so flexible. You can use it in so many different scenarios. It's such a versatile tool. So yeah, iPad takes flexibility. Okay, next up, which is the trickiest one, the OS, so the operating system on both of these. We're talking about iPadOS versus macOS, and this is like a debate for the ages, but here's the thing, the iPad Pro has come a really long way, right? They've improved so many things on making this like as close as possible that, it's come to ever to being a laptop replacement. But for me personally, it's just not there yet, right? At least for me. And I know this can work for a lot of people out there, but for me, it just doesn't work. There's something totally freeing about having like a dedicated laptop, right? It's just you have so many different applications you can run. There's so many different softwares and stuff like that that maybe potentially if you were to run in the future, you don't have to worry about it because your MacBook is going to be able to handle it for the most part. In terms of like the peace of mind, the ease of use, and like, being able to run anything and everything, the MacBook Air takes the cake here. And on top of that, multitasking, so much more easier on the MacBook Air. Don't get me wrong, they have new multitasking features that are coming out that are going to make this a lot better and easier to use. But just the fact that I can open up and drag a bunch of windows and put certain windows here and have multiple things open in like a couple seconds, I mean, that itself is, a huge win for multitasking, because the whole point of multitasking is to save time. So if I'm trying to, if it takes me more time to set up multitasking windows on the iPad Pro, then what's the point of multitasking? With the iPad Pro, like you can do pretty much majority of the things that you're gonna do with your laptop. Like I've personally been able to do a lot of, like majority of my work other than actual editing of videos and stuff like that on their iPad Pro. And frankly speaking, for the average person, vast majority of the people, what are they doing? They're using it for notes, they're using it for reading stuff, browsing the internet, watching multimedia content. That's all pretty, basic stuff. You can do all of that on the iPad Pro without any issues. Overall, for that freedom, peace of mind, ease of use, point still goes to the MacBook Air. Next up, in terms of performance, can you believe that the iPad Pro has the same exact chip that's like in my iMac back there, in the same, like the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, like it has the same exact chip. So in terms of performance, like for the vast majority of the things we're gonna be doing on these, iPads and laptops and computers, they're gonna function pretty much the same. Of course, you're still gonna have slightly better performance on like the laptops and the iMacs and stuff like that, just because of the way the thermals work. The iPad Pro is a lot thinner, it's smaller, it's a lot more tightly put together. So from a thermal standpoint, you may have better efficiencies with these machines, but it's come a long way. The iPad was never a hindrance for me to do anything I needed to do in like 2018. And it's still not going to be a hindrance in 2020 or 2021 or anytime going forward. So it's great. It's great. I'm gonna call this a draw. Next up, ports. Now, previously, like the last gen iPad Pro, this would have been a knock on the iPad Pro. However, now with the new one that they've just released with the M1 chip, you now have a Thunderbolt port on the actual iPad, which is great. Like now I can't really knock on the iPad Pro for just having like, one port. Sure, it's only one port, but when you pair it with the Magic Keyboard, you get another port on here, albeit that is a USB-C port. However, you can use that port to charge the iPad Pro, which kind of leaves this port open for you to, plug in whatever you need to, SSDs or anything like that. The iPad Air doesn't have that many more ports. It only has 2 ports anyways. Both of them are Thunderbolt, but technically if you were to use one for charging, then you'd use the other one as well. So either way, they kind of even out. I'm not gonna give any one of these a point over the other. Let's talk about the screen next. Now this is probably one of my favorite comparisons because the screen on the iPad Pro, beautiful. Now I know it does have some issues, and I've put it out there before as well. I mean, with the whole like, what is it called, blooming issue, it's there. When I watch it, something at night, you know, with everything else dark around me, I can see the blooming issue. But the screen is just so damn good on this. It's probably the best screen I've used to date on a product. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I will still vouch for it. It looks so beautiful. Whereas the iPad Air is not the best display that Apple makes. I mean, it's good enough, it does the job. If you're using this anywhere outside or portable, or you want to take this around with you, man, the brightness on this thing, oof, incredible, right? The actual clarity, the screen, the HDR capabilities, everything is just, it's money. Screen honestly is a big deal for me. Like, I'm actually really excited about that because the display on this is pretty much one of the best displays Apple makes on any product. It's only second to like their $6,000 Pro Display XDR monitor. So getting that into your iPad it's a win. I'm so glad they did that. Now, next up, cameras and LiDAR. If you need anything to do with cameras, I mean, this is a win. Like, this is the way to go. Even just for like the webcam, right? It's just so much better. It has like new features on it where it'll kind of like track you if you're moving around. It uses like the ultra wide camera on the iPad Pro. So even during calls, it'll kind of zoom in, zoom out to kind of just keep you in the frame, even if you're moving around. So all of that stuff is great on this. The webcam on the MacBook Air is just, yeah, it's really bad. It's like 720p. Also, it has a LiDAR sensor. I'm not much to use VR or AR applications or design anything like that, but if that is something that you do, then this does have LiDAR as well, so that could be a pro for you. Next up, speakers. Dude, the speakers on the iPad Pro, like, hard point for the iPad Pro. I mean, the speakers on this are good, don't get me wrong, but the iPad Pro, oh, such beautiful speakers, like really good speakers. Here's an example of both of them.
20 drivers, 21 races. There can only be one world champion. 20 drivers, 21 races. There can only be one world champion.
And last but not least, battery life. Battery life, surprisingly, like before the iPad Pro was like the king of battery life. Now with the new M1 chips, damn, like these laptops are really good. I'd actually give the point for battery life to the MacBook Air, which is surprising, but it's 2021. Apple M1 chips, right? The iPad Pro, when you pair it with the keyboard, it does drain a little more battery. They're both pretty similar. I mean, even this is really good. It's just, I would give the slight edge to the MacBook Air. Okay, let's conclude. If you're used to the whole unibody design, the comfort factor, you know, having the peace of mind, the freedom that, you know, I could be able to run anything and everything that I want. I don't have to look for workarounds and all of that stuff. Or let's say you're using pro apps and stuff like that. I mean, the choice is simple. You have to still go for the MacBooks, right? And in the MacBooks, in the M1 lineup, my money's going to the MacBook Air. Even over the MacBook Pro, even over the iMac or everything, the MacBook Air is the best value buy that you can get right now. But if you want a multimedia powerhouse, you want the flexibility of being able to use it in laptop mode, being able to use touch, being able to, you know, use it as a drawing tablet, being able to like design stuff on it, draw stuff on it, do artwork, use the cameras, use the webcam, take photos, touch it, then that flexibility, the iPad Pro is the way to go. It can't be beat. It is just so cool. So many different things you can do with it. I mean, it functions as like a pseudo laptop, but it also functions as a tablet, also functions as a drawing tablet, so many different things. So in terms of flexibility, the iPad Pro gets the win. Me personally, because I still need Final Cut Pro and I still do a lot of heavy work, I still need a computer. So you're gonna have to see what exactly are you doing. If you're not doing anything that's, you know, crazy, then you may not need a laptop and you could maybe go with the iPad Pro. If you need the touch, if you need the pencil and everything like that, the iPad Pro is a clear winner for you, right? But keep in mind, you're paying $400 more for something like this than the MacBook Air. And also keep in mind, the MacBook Air has been out for like a few months now. You could probably get a refurbished one for even cheaper, and that's gonna be incredible value. So my advice is, I mean, the better value here, to be quite honest, is the MacBook Air. And it pains for me to say this because I love the iPad Pro so much. But the thing is, I would only use my iPad Pro as a secondary device to like a computer or a laptop. I'm still not there yet where I'm able to replace my laptop with this, but I'll be doing a dedicated video on that, whether this can completely replace a laptop for me. I'm actually trying it out. So make sure you're sub to the channel to see that. I will probably be talking about that very soon. But other than that, you know, I've laid out all the facts for you. Hopefully I helped you make a decision. If you found this video helpful and beneficial, please go ahead and like this video. If you like content around tech gadgets, filmmaking, and lifestyle, then go ahead and smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Take care, stay blessed. Peace. This is so dumb. Why am I doing this?